Struggling with pirouettes? Oh no, I hear you. Feeling unstable and maybe wobbly? This happens all the time. Maybe you're not even sure why they're not working. Well, I'm going to show you with my tips what may be exactly going wrong, and let's sort it out for you. Hi, I'm Isabella. I'm the founder of the BWI platform, which is online classes and courses designed for dancers and dance enthusiasts to help you get to where you want to be. I also do intensives globally. Let's get started. Tip number 1, the perfect preparation leads to the perfect turn. So preparation is everything, especially with pirouettes. So it's got to be so clear. When you're preparing, you've got to make sure your weight placement is in the correct place. Then as we're taking off, we've got to establish the power of the toe. So despite our weight mostly being on the front leg, which we'll get to in a moment, when we actually push off, what we need to establish is the quarter, the very first quarter. And in order to establish that, you've got to really quickly push from the floor with that power of the toe and make sure your alignment is correct straight away. Along with the toe, we've got to focus on the core engagement and arriving at the retire position really quickly. So a lot of people take too long getting to the quarter, therefore the core's not engaged, the retire hasn't been found, and the toe hasn't had that powerful push. So all those things need to happen instantaneously, which is why it's really, really helpful to practice finding that quarter straight away. Film yourself and notice if you're throwing your weight backwards as you're doing it, if you're throwing your weight forwards, are you finding that nice turned out position straight away, or is there delay in that? So make sure power of the toe and pushing the knee back at all times, and that immediately is going to set you up well for 1, 2, 3 or more pirouettes because your preparation is nailed. All right, tip number 2 is staying on balance, and the secret to staying on balance. So we found our quarter, so we found the position, but now how do we stay up for the turn itself? So it's all about keeping aligned in the shoulders. So I always like to think about, I'm coming around and making a carbon copy of myself each time I turn. Because with a lot of dancers, what I see is they take off and then they throw their weight backwards as they're turning, losing that nice line of the shoulders. They distort themselves. The key thing is to turn and hold on to that levelness of the shoulders and hips. And by keeping the imagery of your shoulders being level, you're also keeping your whole body aligned, including your hips. Then the hard part is actually finding that position and sustaining it with the muscles. So you've got to keep the hamstring engaged, the toe engaged, the knee pushing back. And whilst we're doing that, the momentum is coming from the direction of the shoulders. Then we stay up. I think one common mistake with pirouettes is we focus on settling when we get up there. So we get to the position, then the posture relaxes, the shoulders lose their alignment, and then we come down quite quickly. You've got to always remember that turns are a very much continuous piece of work, a continuous movement. You're always pulling up, you're always working the back. You should be able to turn almost without arms because you're utilizing the back so much. One thing I always like to focus on in my classes is the alignment of the elbow and the knee when you're turning. So when you're pushing off into a turn, if you keep your arms in the very center of your body, number 1, that's really important. Don't throw the arms off your center. Then as you turn, keep this feeling like there's a piece of string attached from the elbow to the knee. So as you turn, you're keeping that alignment. So then by utilizing the back and keeping that imagery of staying in line with knee and elbow, you'll be on your way to doing multiple turns. And it does take practice. Don't be afraid to fall. Don't be afraid to stumble when you go for it a bit more. It's how we get better. So let's say you're completely aligned now. Your shoulders are square, but you're still falling over. Let's look at the weight placement. So when you're taking off, for example, whether you're the Russian technique or the more English style, where we push off straight away from 2 bent knees, whereas the Russian style, you start with the back leg straight and the front leg bent, and then we plie just before we go into the turn. Weight placement is really important. So regardless of what technique you're doing, I would say make sure your weight is 95% on the front leg. You just have enough on the back leg that you can access the turnout in that back leg and you have the power of the toe. Now, when I say bring your weight onto the front leg, you've got to be careful that you don't just lean forwards with the head and leave the bottom out. You've still got to bring everything forwards underneath you so that you're completely aligned on that front leg. Then all you need to do is push up and around, but your body is already in the correct alignment, already stacked. You have less work to do afterwards, which is what we want. Whereas if you're leaning forwards or leaning too far back onto the back leg, you're giving yourself a less assured pirouette and a less likelihood of doing it well, because you're starting in an incorrect place and having to then try as you push off to get to the correct place. Whereas if you're already in that optimal position, then all you need to focus on is rising up and utilizing the body. Then it's much easier. So check in with that. Then another key tip, which I think is really useful, and definitely film yourself so you can dissect this with the weight. If everything's aligned, your weight's in the correct place initially, and you push off and you're falling eventually towards one side, it can be very helpful to lift one arm slightly higher than the other. So for example, if I'm turning and I'm falling towards the working side, as I take off, I will focus on this elbow lifting up more as I turn. So to put it to extremes, it'll feel like I'm a little bit like this, but actually I'm still square. I just have a sense of that size lifting more, which will counteract me from falling over. And these are all things you only discover if you take the time to practice and you take the time to discover these sensations. You're not going to find it if you practice just once in a blue moon. So take the time, even 10 minutes a day. You can discover a lot in 10 minutes. I've had many breakthroughs in short chunks of time, but those breakthroughs only happen if you're consistently practicing every day or 3 times a week. 10 minutes. We can all squeeze in 10 minutes. Often I wouldn't even have a lot of room. I wouldn't even do it in a studio. I do it in my kitchen, on this slippery floor, to try just to feel things, even with 50% effort. It can be super duper helpful. So weight placement, align shoulders, and then understanding what it is you're doing wrong by filming yourself. And then you can make a lot of progress in a short space of time. Tip number 3, spotting for single or eventually multiple turns. So you may have seen students around you, and you may be one of these students many times when you go into the turn and the head's very, very still, which sometimes ruins the pirouette because maybe everything else is actually looking really good. But having good spot is really key. There is a pirouette course for beginners coming to the platform. And one of the lessons I'm really excited about is about spotting. So there's many layers to spotting. It's not just a case of whipping the head. It's identifying what you're doing slightly wrong. So first of all, with spotting, if I give you a few tips now, is the very first quarter is really key. So we can't just go straight away. You've got to find that quarter and then whip the head. And I also notice with a lot of students is the eyes are slow. So you turn and then the eyes wander around and get left behind. So even just practicing the focus of the eyes as you're coming around can be really, really beneficial. And it's not just a case of focusing on something, because when you get quite advanced with turns, you find that you don't actually need to see something physically in focus, but there's a very strong sense of direction, right? So initially when you're practicing and you're more beginner, it may be helpful to focus on something so that your eyes physically come around back to that thing. But then later, having that sense of direction like we focused on with the shoulders and then the head will be enough for you to spot well. So making sure we're practicing the spotting as well in those layers. Quarter, then whipping head is the first step. Then we get faster. If you're a beginner or someone who's leading into the next level and you're struggling with doing more than one turn, along with the weight placement and the engagement of the body, check in with your spotting. It's another thing to not run before you can walk. I know we all want to do 2 or 3 pirouettes, but if you're not spotting well, then it's really just going to be very hard for you to really add those turns up. So make sure everything that I've spoken about in the previous tips is all working for one turn. So the foundation is there. Then we can build up and add another one. but don't do that before everything else is looking good, because basically you'll slow the progress down. And we want you to progress nice and steadily and evenly. Because remember, with ballet, it's not a race. It's a progressive journey of improvement, and you've got to go at your own pace. Some people will progress faster than others, and that's completely fine. You do what you need to do and don't compare yourself to other people's journeys. So guys, that is it with the tips here. I've just given you a tiny taste of some of the things you need to focus on. If you're looking for more in-depth courses and instruction, you know where to head, balletwithisabella.com, with myself and other teachers helping you get to where you want to be. With pirouettes, it's just all about practice, not being afraid to make mistakes and fall over a little bit, and so that we can dissect what's going wrong and then progress upon it. Any good turner you see is a good turner because they've been obsessed with getting their turns good. They haven't just woken up and started doing however many pirouettes. They've really, really worked hard on it and understood exactly where their sweet spot of balance is each time. So you will get there. Keep practicing, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.